Write that down for me, Saito. Write that down for me, Saito.
All right, welcome back, patrons. This is Write That Down. I'm Justin Nipper of FightGameMedia.com and WrestlingObserver.com. I'm back with the one, the only Mr. Fumi Saito. Welcome back.
Hello from Tokyo.
Today is second part of our Jumbo Tsuda Part 2 showcase profile. We're going to what we're going to start with, we're going to start at his career in All Japan in 1984, 1985, 1986, the mid-80s era, because this is where the real big shift in his character seemed to change, right?
Right, in Japanese wrestling history as well.
Right, because of Riki Choshu.
Yeah, so we have to start with Riki Choshu's strong New Japan heel run for the first time. He turned on Fujinami, and that was basically the very first Japanese heel faction. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
You know, ISHIN-GUN.
Mm.
Yeah, Riki Choshu, the Yoshiaki Yatsu, the Killer Khan, Animal Hamaguchi, the Isamu Teranishi, the Kuniaki Kobayashi, the very strong Japanese heel faction. That made, New Japan lineup, the top group cluster lineup and matchup all Japanese babyface against Japanese heels. And up until then, both Inoki's New Japan, Giant Baba's All Japan, it was basically Japanese top star against American superstar format.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For a while.
And traditionally. And this Riki Choshu's ISHIN-GUN had a strong run in New Japan, 82, 83, 84. Okay. 3 years, real strong run. Then the entire Riki Choshu's faction, ISHIN-GUN, and became a actual company body. They incorporated themselves as a Japan Pro Wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
Japan Pro, we call it, and signed the contract with All Japan and Nippon Television's Channel 4. So the entire Riki Choshu faction migrated into All Japan. It was more so a Channel 4 Nippon Television decision than Baba's decision, okay? That's pretty much, I don't have to talk about myself, but the beginning of January 85, that's when I basically started full-time with Weekly Pro Wrestling, Shukan Pro Wrestling of Baseball Magazine. So I started being there all the time, I came back from States and all that. And the dressing room, like in a small dressing room, you've been to downstairs of Korakuen Hall, right?
Mm-hmm.
The building actually isn't all that big.
No.
Now, yeah, you have All Japan Japanese dressing room with 20 guys in it, and you have American dressing room. You always have 10 Americans in it. Then 15 that the Riki Choshu's ISHIN-GUN had their own dressing room. So then they had 13 matches a night, and 6-man tag team, 8-man tag team, 6-man tag team, 6-man tag team. It's like too many guys. Like you got 45 to 50 guys working every night. Crazy, huh?
Very hot crowds too. People loved what was going on.
Yeah, and that really changed the basic format of All Japan Pro Wrestling. You have Riki Choshu's guys, not ISHIN-GUN now, but it's a Japan Pro Wrestling with different, tracksuit top and bottom. They took off, pretty much half the lineup, and you have traditional Japanese, All Japan babyface Japanese dressing room, and you have American like Stan Hansen, the Tiger Jitsing, the Funks, the regular American team. Up until then, we're talking about Jumbo now. Jumbo Tsuruta and his role was take up on top American superstars in main event place, right?
Right.
But by having Riki Choshu's 15 guys, start working full time with All Japan, that forced Jumbo into this tag team situation against Riki Choshu's group basically every night. So up until then, Jumbo never really worked against Japanese heels. That really changed his style. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and he stopped working alongside Giant Baba as much, and he
Then, yeah, by having Riki Choshu's whole clan, whole faction coming in and signed with that group, that the Baba, that was an opportunity that Baba really stepped down from that top position and made his position like your um, six-man tag team, rather comic six-man tag team before the intermission type of deal.
That's kind of a classic All Japan part of the show, right?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
The light
not
part.
so much comic, but before the intermission, Giant Baba has his own match in 60-man, six-man tag team against Japanese heels, like Russia Kimura and his guys, pretty much all year long, and that was like a happy time, that too. And then intermission comes, and then Jumbo's group, against Riki Choshu's group, basically every night, guys rotate, Riki Choshu team up with Killer Khan one night, the next night you team up with Animal Hamaguchi or Yoshiaki Yatsu, or sometimes Kobayashi, or just kind of rotate, but basically kind of a routine, huh? And around that time, yes, the Tenryu was still babyface, right underneath Jumbo. Okay, so Tenryu wasn't really the big superstar of himself later on. That hasn't happened yet. Okay, that's a picture. And it really forced Jumbo to come up with his real natural, himself. Like he's actually physically a lot bigger than any of these Choshu's guys.
Much bigger.
Taller and heavier. Yeah, much bigger. So he started working more like a monster, like a Japanese stance, Japanese bruiser Brody kind of thing.
Even his facial expressions kind of started to change around this time. He had a kind of a baby face look with the fluffy hair and the Texas pants. And by the 80s, he was a little heavier, a little meaner. He acted like the enforcer in All Japan. He acted he was a new role he was taking on.
It was much like your late 90s NWO type of thing, that a whole bunch of Japanese heels, a whole bunch of fresh heel coming into your company as outsiders, That was Riki Choshu. And actually a lot of people loved Riki Choshu's group over New Japan. All Japan guys. A lot of the male fans traditionally always secretly loved heels over babyface, huh?
I have a question for you, and it relates to this. So when you say, Choshu turned on Fujinami, and he and his group ISHIN-GUN, they became Japanese heels. But when you say heel in Japan, does it mean exactly the same thing when we think heel in, say, United States?
Like a rule breaking and it's more like they treat it like your philosophical difference. You know what I'm saying?
And Choshu's group kind of had more of all the guys, their personalities seemed to have an edge. They were a little more, maybe they didn't get really good grades in school compared to other top stars on the other side.
And all of them had like a goatee or mustache,
shaggy hair.
Yeah, right. Or different costume, not like your uniform New Japan, black trunks and black boots. Riki Choshu had black trunks but white boots. Animal Hamaguchi had his Tarzan tights,
one strap.
Yeah, and the Killer Khan always dressed like Killer Khan, the Mongolian. Yoshiaki Yatsu always dressed like your Masa Saito get up, the knee tights with Japan on it. And it's like dressed like heel, but it wasn't like your rule breaking, cheating heels. They work like tough guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it felt like they were the away team coming into the home team's field.
Yeah, or like outcast guys.
Yeah, they're the outsiders. They were outsiders compared with...
That made people like Fujinami even cleaner,
Right. And on the
bigger baby face.
And All Japan too, on the other side, it kind of shifted.
Yeah, it made Jumbo. It's like your strong New Japan fans. It's like keep and save All Japan from these outsiders, right? Yeah. So some of these people, yes, really behind Jumbo and Tenryu then, But Riki Choshu positioned as heel, but these guys are cool guys, you know,
Cool heels.
cool heels. Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, that the whole lineup became, you know, that the Japanese babyface All Japan side against Japanese heels, the Japan Pro Wrestling, Riki Choshu's group, formerly known as ISHIN-GUN. Then they pretty much pushed American guys into mid card. You still had, you know, Stan Hansen, of course, on top, and all the other American come in and rotate, you know. And that made also people like Great Kabuki All Japan side like a babyface, you know. I mean, saving the company from the outsiders. And so they changed a little bit of layout of it, but made Jumbo clear babyface. Not challenging to a bigger name, you know, like when he challenged people like, you know, Dory Funk to Jack Briscoe to Harley Race to Terry Funk all the way to Ric Flair. He was the guy who's challenging big for the bigger thing. But all of a sudden, after Riki Choshu and his group came in, Jumbo was the one who was defending the company.
He's
You
protecting the Holy Land.
Yeah, yeah. And then Baba is not involved in the actual fight. He became more of a boss in fans' eyes too.
Right. And he would start doing more of the funny matches with Rusher Kimura and
yeah. So that was a nice part before in the mission, like I said. And Giant Baba never really had single match against people like Riki Choshu.
No.
Or Killer Khan. You know?
He was he wasn't on the first or second matches, but he phased himself
like
out.
Fourth match, right before the intermission. And after the intermission, the match gets serious. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. And the only time Giant Baba had actual matches against Riki Choshu's guys were during the tag team tournament in December.
Right.
Yeah, tag team of Baba and Dory Funk together, or Baba against Jumbo sometimes. Baba and a little bit later on, Baba and Stan Hansen team up together
94.
as the senior guys. Yeah. But that was Riki Choshu and his guys entered these real tag team tournament in December. Therefore, once a year, Baba's team and Riki Choshu's team faced against each other just once. And the photographers are there to just shoot the moment where Riki Choshu put the Scorpion Deathlock, Sasori Gatame on Giant Baba, just to take that one picture, you know?
But it was...
So they touched each other for just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But there was never serious competition. Or even people wanted to see it even, you know? That they knew and we knew there was like two different generation of wrestlers. Giant Baba much older, and everybody knows he's a boss, you know, but still in the ring. So it was good.
So it was a real big shift in pro wrestling.
Big shift. And like I said, that the member of Riki Choshu's group, Riki Choshu, the Killer Khan, the Yoshiaki Yatsu, the Animal Hamaguchi, the Masa Saito a little bit once or twice coming back from States, and Kuniaki Kobayashi, of course, that he was the biggest rival of original Tiger Mask, and wearing red pants like your Benny Jet Yukide, you know, that martial arts superstar.
Yeah, the kung fu, karate kung fu. He had a death match in Hong Kong. He was very very popular.
That was he put the same red tights, pants, you know, and that was Kobayashi's gimmick. Anyhow, that was the time that the 2-year period, 1985, 1986, 2-year period. On top of this, Riki Choshu's group, as of 1986, then rookie, 1984 LA Olympic guy, Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasaki, right out of high school, they joined Riki Choshu's group. Later on, too, became superstars, right? A very strong faction.
But a different path, because Choshu would end up leaving. He would return back to New Japan
in 87.
Yeah, right before.
After 2-year run. Yeah.
So at 87, so it seemed, you know, it was back to Jumbo's house again. And Misawa was Tiger Mask too.
Right.
It was
and Great Kabuki was still there. And Yoshiaki Yatsu was the only one who decided not to leave and go back to New Japan with them, and he stayed with Old Japan and turned basically babyface
Mhm.
and start teaming with Jumbo
Right.
as an Olympian. Yeah,
Uh, Jumbo also had a pretty popular run with Tenryu.
yeah, Kakuryu. Yeah,
Mm. They were
that was that position. It was positioning Tenru clear number two, clearly underneath Jumbo though,
Mm.
and also Jumbo having international heavyweight title single, and Tenru having UN United National Heavyweight title, which people viewed as one below international title. So he was positioned clear number two. He had to right after, not right after, but after Riki Choshu's whole 15 wrestlers clan, his faction went back to New Japan. Then it somewhat became scouting, right?
Mm.
And that was when Tenru really started, showing his personality. That it's like he's not happy with this position, and he wants to have single match against Jumbo, and wants to who is better. I mean, all these very simple storyline, but the ones that make realistically make sense.
Yeah, with the timeline, it felt natural.
Yeah. And he assigned his, another loner, Ashirahara, as his tag team partner, like another loner. Okay, we'll get together, and became Ryugen Ho and forming heel tag team. But never was labeled as heel. It was more like a same philosophy Riki Choshi used. It's like an outcasted.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna be with this, you know, this like a total baby face, like a goody. I don't know what do you call it.
Like goody two shoes, like perfect.
Goody two shoes type. I was looking for that word. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he said, I'm not gonna do this. I don't represent this. I represent something else.
Right. And what he need is serious single match against Jumbo that never really took place while Riki Choshu was around.
No, nothing with a real definitive ending.
Right, right.
A lot of
And
this time in the 80s, there was a lot of double count outs, a lot of
oh yeah, like a face saving.
schmuzz. Yeah.
Yeah, it was real frustrating for all Japan fans as well, because New Japan always gave relatively cleaner finish because traditionally Inoki and Fujinami beat everybody, right?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. And Jumbo against even people like Jumbo against Terry Gordy single match, they never gave clear finish.
Right.
Yeah. And Jumbo against Bruiser Brody single match so many times, but he usually count out finish outside the ring or double count out or your dusty finish Joe Higuchi referee bump and something like that,
Mm.
So it was really frustrating, because Baba was always to take care top names, like really conservative, old fashioned American type promoter booking.
NWA style.
I guess, yeah, because you have to save face,
Sure.
because they're from different companies and they're just American superstars are just having tours, and yeah, it's like not gonna beat them and send home.
Yeah, there's a compromise, so.
Yeah, and around the same time, 85, um, when Riki Choshu's group came in, that's when Bruiser Brody decided to leave All Japan and all by himself joined signed contract with New Japan and had this 1985 program, Inoki against Bruiser Brody, legendary series.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 85 was also the year that the Road Warriors start coming in as regular.
Mm.
They only had like 1 week tour here and there, but they came in three or four tours a year, 1 week at a time. So they made big deal out of that, but the Road Warriors was added to the All Japan package, which was good. And still people like Harley Race and Nick Bockwinkel aged, but they still have like a big superstar aura. The Race and Bockwinkel would come in probably twice a year. And every summer you have Mil Mascaras and his brother Dos Caras. And after that summer action series, you have Dory and Terry Funk come in. And yeah, so they had this, All Japan had its, annual calendar year that just much like your, January means Royal Rumble. April means WrestleMania,
Mm.
SummerSlam, the Survivor Series, all these other pay-per-views are important, but all those big five tours, yeah, it's a big. And in Japan, you have the January Giant Series tour, then you have a Superpower Series tour. Spring, you have your serious singles Champion Carnival tournament thing. And the summer, you have, like I said, Mil Maskers tour, the Funks tour. In fall, you have another Giant Series, all the stars. Then December, you have your tag team tournament. And yeah, calendar year was strong. And Jumbo was always on top of it. But I think after Jumbo having these single matches against people like Riki Choshu and his, more of a Japanese heels, people started taking Jumbo a little bit more seriously. Like, this guy wasn't just good wrestler. This guy is big guy and tough guy. Because the Riki Choshu and Jumbo Tsuruta single match only happened once in 1985. It was 60-minute Broadway. 60-minute, of course, no finish. But Jumbo actually toyed Riki Choshu over, with his physical dominance, I guess,
He's much bigger than Choshu.
Yeah, and then Riki Choshu back then was the type of wrestler you can have great single matches against certain guys, but against certain guys he only has so-so matches.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It was up
You
to how
have
he's
to-
feeling, maybe that night.
Yeah, he has to do this. His Ricky Lariat. He has to be able to do his Scorpion Deathlock. He has to work like Riki Choshu, and some of these wrestlers wouldn't allow it, right? Or just look awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan Hansen, Riki Choshu, single match that happened 5-6 times, I think. It wasn't as good as your Jumbo against Stan match, if you're an educated fan.
Yeah, they're too independent for each other for it to work. I think somebody like Stan Hansen likes to go in and it seems like people follow behind him. It's his
And
pace.
he has to work like Stan Hansen.
Yes, but Choshu has to work like Choshu. On the other hand,
There's a style clash.
Yeah.
It's still professional. Nothing funny happened. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it just wasn't. It was maybe better in our minds beforehand.
Or just two different cocktails.
True. Yeah, I just
kind of like that.
But that's okay because they both went on to great success. So.
Oh, of course. And when I asked Stan Hansen in person how he thought about Riki Choshu, the Stan didn't think Choshu was bad. He thought he had his own style, and then if you didn't like our match, be it. And he didn't think it was bad matches. Both guys looked like they're trying to win. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it looked more like a boring MMA match.
Yeah, but it's when you ask people like a veteran like Terry Funk, you see some of the matches, I didn't think it was any good. And I didn't think the match was good. Why so, right? And Terry Funk will teach you. Both guys looked like they were trying to win. That's what makes good matches. And your good match and my good match, this definition is different. Okay, sir. You know what I'm saying? So I learned something from that. You have to look like you are trying to win, because the whole thing of wrestling is make believe, right? When you see a good wrestling match, professional, okay? When you see good wrestling match, you would have this suspension of disbelief thing naturally without even trying. Oh, that was good match, right?
You should.
Not just flying or not just very successful, complicated high spot. It was more like one person fighting another person and each guy is trying to win. And the moves and transition may not look as smooth as your good match, good work. But if you are looking like you're trying to win that match, that makes good match. It's like, oh, wow, I learned something. So that changed me a little bit.
And Jumbo is another one of those guys who really wrestled in a way where it was sort of realistic in that it looked like he really wanted to end the match and win and overpower and put pressure on all of his opponents like he would in a regular wrestling match.
And he's so big, it's convincing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So
But that made it was like almost like another run. It's like another chapter of Jumbo Tsuru's wrestling career. His role up until then was this blue star, American looking tights and having a great match, so-called great match with American superstars. That was his role up until '84, but when he started working against another Japanese heels and Japanese wrestlers, it really turned another page in Jumbo's career. He had it in him, and people started looking at him differently. Does that make sense?
it must be he was showing a different side of himself to the crowd. It was a different side of his. It just wasn't like what he was like when he came in. He found.
And it didn't. To me, he wasn't working 100% up until then. Now he shows emotion. Now he shows his anger. Now he shows his like a happiness that when he gives big clothesline or something, they go whoa, like and then people react to it like you were with him, kind of thing.
Or a big double chop that makes a big bachi bachi sound, that smack against somebody. He would always use that double chop.
Yeah.
Also,
And then signal the crowd, they're like, oh, right?
That's right, yeah, because he just had that presence. Who else could do that? Who else could do that and help you forget about all the other stuff that might help or might hold wrestling back? You want to get into it. You want to root for somebody who wants to win. And like you said, if the match is focused on winning, it's easier for fans to get behind it.
It might be a newer term that everybody talk about strategically things, right? Everything's strategic. But yes, Giant Baba strategically placed Rookie Jumbo into top spot right away as a babyface. But Jumbo himself strategically made himself biggest guy and toughest guy by working against Japanese group. Yeah, like strategically. But it was kind of natural. And back there, educated wrestling fans' mind, it became clear that Jumbo is the biggest and toughest guy. Do you know anybody else who is tougher than Jumbo? It's like, right. I didn't like Jumbo all that much as a star and babyface superstar and top star and all these things. But now I believe Jumbo is the biggest and toughest guy. It's like, wow, it became clear very convincingly. Therefore, very believable. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think it's a mix of his time he spent there adding to his credibility, plus being in the ring. It's easy to just suspend disbelief and get behind.
Yeah, and then gave him another edge by working against edgy guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it also kind of later on, it seemed to, this is just my opinion, it seemed to give him more of a big bully senpai feel in the late 80s, 90s, especially
when younger guys start coming up.
Yes, yeah. So that's, but before that, he did have that really important match with Stan Hansen, the Triple Crown match.
Yeah, and put Tenryu in that package too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That elevated Tenryu in the same. There's like a 3 Yokozunas. Yokozuna meaning grand champion, top guys. Jumbo, Stan, Tenryu. These 3 became equal as of 86, 87. Yeah.
But Tenryu was still kind of that third man, a little bit.
Yeah, third man, but you love underdog in wrestling.
Right. And he would go on to a totally different route. We talked about that in a couple episodes.
Yeah, because he had longer career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was his goal. It was his goal to beat Jumbo, and people believed in him. And believed in the whole program.
Mm-hmm.
Can Tenryu beat Stan 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring? Can Tenryu beat Jumbo 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring? That happened with this new finish of Powerbomb. Powerbomb became kind of a trendy move in late 90s. Jumbo used it. Tenryu used it. Stan Hansen used it. Terry Gordy used it. It became like a very convincing move. The powerbomb finish. You know what I'm saying?
Sid Vicious.
Yeah, in
America at the same time.
Yeah,
a little later.
Mm-hmm. But powerbomb was was a very convincing move.
Yeah.
I mean, how I mean, get picked up by it. The big guy gets slammed from back with your head, the whole body. How can you get up from that?
It looked devastating. It had a very powerful look.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. After Choshu's clan left, it was around the time 88, 89 that the big business change occurred in America too. The end of NWA era, and WCW, was born, and WWE, WWF at the time, and WCW became two major company with national TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's like 100 wrestlers, under contract, and it's all the local territories, so-called territories, up until then, it all went out of business. AWA went out of business. Dallas World Class went out of business. Detroit, Indianapolis, even NWA Florida, Central States, all these NWA and other company went out of business. They just really changed the map, right?
It was.
Were you following wrestling then?
I started following wrestling in 1991, 1990.
Oh, okay, right.
So
that already had. So you already had WCW national television.
Yes. I came right at the end, like the last. But when it was New York, I didn't get much. It was WWF territory when I grew up.
WWF every week.
Yeah,
right,
only
right.
in Western New York there was other stuff.
After '84, though, there's so many wrestlers in WWF.
Yes.
So many. I mean, Vince McMahon Sr.'s era, it was still a big company, but you only had like maybe 20 to 25 wrestlers altogether.
Mm-hmm. It was like a team.
Yeah,
a roster, yeah.
And roster, right. And after Hulk Hogan era came in, you have 100 wrestlers in 3 different cities, and running every day kind of thing. And that influenced the landscape of Japanese wrestling as well. Giant Baba's All Japan Pro Wrestling, the very strong ally, very strong affiliate from NWA era, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Giant Baba's All Japan was the only company that the NWA World Champion would travel. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Hardy Race, Dory Funk, all these people. That Inoki's New Japan had a business, that connection with WWF, and all the New York superstar would travel to New Japan. Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, whatnot, But that really changed the landscape. WWE and New Japan finished their business relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to develop their own American talent, right? Too, and a lot of Japanese heels. And the same thing happened with All Japan around the same time that they cut the tie with NWA and WCW. So you have your own American crew like Stan Hansen, the Tiger Jeet Singh, the Terry Gordy, the Steve Williams, Danny Spivey, then rookie Johnny Ace, Dynamite Kid after he quit WWF, Davey Boy, all these All Japan American was developed that time. Remember?
They were kind of the regulars. They would be on most of the tours or every other tour.
The Stan Hansen, Johnny S, Danny Spivey, Danny Crawford, the Doug Furness, Terry Gordy, Steve Williams, they were on tour every tour. They're on every tour.
So they were like a part of the Japanese roster almost. They were regulars.
Oh yeah, they're all Japan Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Therefore, actually, when you have regular, you can really work program.
Yeah, and it wasn't like in the 60s and 70s where the foreigners were the big monster stars. These were more of
they're just having tours.
Mm-hmm. They were equals to the rest of the Japanese wrestlers. It was more of like a even sport.
Then in a couple of years' time, that Terry Gordy and Steve Williams will be in Triple Crown pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that made Jumbo like a giant Japanese baby face again. That you can work against Tenryu's heel group. You can work against the American, like a Stan and other, Jumbo against Steve Williams, Jumbo against Terry Gordy, Jumbo against Danny Spivey and such. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah. And it was Maybe do you think it was just also a special time because that was a lot of special wrestlers that I don't think that doesn't happen often when a lot of those talents are all in the same place at the same time, especially in that late 80s, early 90s with a lot of the stars that we were just talking about from overseas.
Yeah, yeah. But Terry Funk, I mean, people like Terry Gordy and Steve Williams choose Japan as their home territory over American schedules. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
After start making 8 tours back and forth the whole year, Terry Gordy, Steve Williams, Johnny S, Danny Spivey, just like Stan, they stopped working in the States. Yeah, altogether.
It was more lucrative.
Because Giant Baba was paying them like annual contract salary. Yeah, you make enough money just in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it wouldn't be a constant grind of a tour like WWF would be almost every day. Non-stop.
Oh yeah. Japanese schedules actually like 120 shows a year, even with All Japan. 3-week tour, 2 weeks off. 3-week tour, 3 weeks off. 4-week tour, 3 weeks off. And people like I said, Terry Gordy, Steve Williams, Stan, Johnny, they were traveling 8 trips to Japan a year. So when you go home, you don't do anything.
Just rest.
Yeah. And you can actually focus on Japanese program,
Yeah, it can build.
Yeah, that's when Giant Baba decided to team up people like then rookie Kobashi and Johnny S together as a tag team, Japanese and American together.
Younger ones too.
Yeah, and good-looking ones. Yeah, that was success. And later on, they grew out of each other, and they can have their own single program too. Very strategically, designed again.
So then, let's talk about Jumbo's relationship with Mitsuharu Misawa, because that's when he, by the 1990, I believe it was...
That's after actually 87, 88, 89 program, 3-year feud between Jumbo and Tenryu kind of ran its course. And in 1990, the new money, new company that the SWS ill-fated, but the SWS owned by Megane Super, they started a new wrestling company, like almost like a bubble economy company that they took Tenryu as their top guy, and Tenryu decided to leave at the age of 40.
And he finally could try his hand, become his version of the number one guy, the main guy.
Yeah, I think so. And he never went back to New Japan. Tenryu never went back to All Japan until like 2001. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, next 10-year period was like Tenryu's prime time too. Yeah.
And when he returned to All Japan, that was sort of, maybe you could say, a similar role to Jumbo's role in the 80s, the guy who came back to sort of...
Senior wrestler.
To protect the... or whatever, traditional
All Japan, All Japan logo.
Especially in a rocky time.
Yeah, and it was Mrs. Baba, because Baba died in January of 1999, and Jumbo actually died year 2000. It was shocking. And 2001, year 2000, Misawa and his 20 guys left Mrs. Baba's version of All Japan to form Pro Wrestling Noah, right? And he really became skeleton. Only 2 wrestlers left, Kawada and Fuchi. Then a little bit later, a year later, Keiji Muto joins. But it was Mrs. Baba who made the phone call to Genichiro Tenryu. Please come back. It was a good babyface story.
And you can, if you're listening now, you can go back into the Patreon archives and listen to the Tenryu episodes that we did last month, because we went into even more detail on those.
But if you go back and forth of 10 years to a 15-year period, that it might confuse our listeners. So let's go back to where we were. In 1990, Tenryu left for SWS. Jumbo's there. And with Tenryu, this time, much like Riki Choshu did a few years back, that Tenryu took 10 guys from All Japan, when he left for SWS. That really became, oh my gosh, who's left, right? That's when Tiger Mask unmasked and became Mitsuharu Misawa, and that was his time. Everybody knew he was Misawa, but the timing was perfect. Tenryu's gone, and 10 other guys are gone, and you still have Jumbo, but it was Tiger Mask's time to go back to Misawa, and people were ready to see new superstar being born. Yeah.
New style, new Jumbo was really a great example of that all Japan style for decades. I mean, the style in the ring.
And also for Jumbo, Misawa was always like his little brother type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he never really beat Jumbo in single match situation. It happened. That's why it was huge. But everybody remembers this very historical match after Tenryu left. Jumbo against unmasked. Now it's new Misawa with new green, emerald green tights. That's the single superstar being about to be born. Jumbo, the biggest guy, biggest superstar and the strongest and toughest guy going up against the Misawa. This is a test that the Misawa can, really do something about this. And then Misawa beat Jumbo for the first time in his wrestling career. So that one night, overnight, like sensation, Misawa actually beat Jumbo. That was believable, like a very single historical match in All Japan history.
It was a new chapter, really.
Oh yeah,
clearly a new chapter being opened.
I have to point out that what's really funny about people's memory, everybody remembers this Misawa beating Jumbo Tsuruta in single match at the Budokan for the first time. Historical, right? Misawa actually beat Jumbo 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring. Pretty complicated finish, but nonetheless, Misawa beat Jumbo for the first time. And actually, 2 months later, in next Budokan match, the rematch was taking place, and Jumbo beat Misawa 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring convincingly. So the score was 1-1. But nobody remembers that second match. It's not funny.
It shows the impact it had. It was the perfect time to do the first match.
Yeah, same thing. Exact same thing happened with people's memory. If you remember, Keiji Muto against Nobuhiko Takada, New Japan against UWFI match at the Tokyo Dome. Everybody remembers how Keiji Muto beat then superstar Nobuhiko Takada with figure 4 leg lock in Tokyo Dome. That was the end of UWFI, basically, right?
But I can't tell you how he won. The next Takada won the next. I don't even remember.
Yeah, 2 months later, the same Tokyo Dome in January 4th, the following year, actually only 2 months later, Takada came back and beat Muto, right? People don't remember that one.
I don't even recall off the top of my head.
I was there. I just can't remember it, because the first match was so important and just impactful that, at the time, UWFI is like right between your pro wrestling and MMA style, right?
But there was no MMA really yet. It was still...
No, not yet. But the UWF was the closest thing.
Yes.
They don't bounce off ropes. They don't fight outside the ring. They don't do drop kicks or anything fancy. They just kicks and suplex and submissions. They cut off all the fringes to be real kind of thing, right?
And they invited real wrestlers with credentials like Dan Severn and Gary Albright.
Or Kozlowski.
Hashimikov, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then Takada beat him. Yeah. So that was Takada's peak year, But something happens, and then the business declined, and they took up the business opportunity that for the last chance that they can still run Tokyo Dome up against New Japan, and New Japan's top guy Keiji Muto going up against Nobuhiko Takada, and it's like nobody knows who was going to win, kind of thing. It was hard to predict, huh?
Yeah. There was no. Well, the first one, just like you said, it felt so much more important. And on the second one,
right,
it felt
the
like...
score was so pro wrestling, though, 1-1, though, 1 win, 1 lose at the end of the day. but nobody remembers the second one. So it really teaches you something that when you do this, you really have to win the first one.
I think so. And it has to be at the right time. It can't just be forced in.
Right. So back to Misawa, Jumbo beat Misawa the second match, but people don't remember. But only elevated Misawa as your new top guy. Yeah.
And he went on to become, the top guy in All Japan.
Next decade, yes.
But also,
and one of the top biggest superstar in the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Jumbo he would retire not too long after this.
Actually, in 1992, he took time off and he got real ill, and it was reported as hepatitis B or something, and he really had to take time off. Then he went back to graduate school in Tsukuba University. He really not a celebrity student, but he really went into graduate school and he wrote the thesis. And shortly after that, he started teaching in college. That's what he did after real retirement. But after that, Jumbo wasn't the same when he came back. He took like 6, 7 months, 8 months off. But when he came back, the only thing he could do was tag team match and come in maybe twice, 3 times during the match. And he does clothesline or fast press or something, or just all kind of thing. It's good to just good to have him there.
Just to make an appearance, but he's not a part of the main stories at this point.
Or the title match.
Title matches, yeah.
Right. But by then, not just Misawa, but Toshiaki Kawada was elevated. Then second, third year rookie Kobashi was groomed into this main event spot. And Akira Taue was so-so, but being put in a situation he can work. And you have then rookie Jun Akiyama. So all these younger guys becoming a star. That was 90s, very much.
And plus new foreign wrestlers becoming bigger stars like Steve Williams.
Right, in the title match picture. And Terry Gordy and Danny Spivey, Johnny Ace, Doug Furnas, Danny Crawford, Dynamite Kid and Johnny Smith, of course. And a couple guys rotated and started coming in too. Yeah. So, that was a very much 90s era. And Jumbo was just, a star from another era that it was good for people to, see every now and then.
But if
Jumbo never had full-time schedule after 93.
Yeah, and I guess you could say it felt like he was from a different time period by this point.
Yeah, right. And also past 40 years old. He was 40-something then.
Yeah. But the style of that Misawa and Kobashi and Kawada were employing was not it was an advanced version, but...
oh, God, very advanced. Only 5 guys that I just mentioned can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And Jumbo wasn't one. Jumbo was a different style.
No, Jumbo just stepped down, obviously.
Yeah.
He maybe he could pull it off, but he generously, intelligently stepped down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right.
And also maybe, just maybe, his heart wasn't in it already. He left. When he went to graduate school and started teaching in college, and he became like a sports doctor, sports medicine type of person. That he was really searching for something new.
Yeah, he did that right where I am in University of Portland, Oregon.
Right, and he started teaching. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. Then we didn't hear from him. I mean, when he left, he really left wrestling.
It's pretty interesting. He was a huge star.
But he was intelligent enough to walk away and never looked back. Not too many superstars do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe him, Stan Hansen. Not too many keep the promise when they say they're going to quit. That's it.
Really quit. Yeah. Oh, Stan Hansen retired as a top guy, aged a little bit, but he was still able to have convincing single match against every single one of these Misawa, Kobashi, Kawada, Taue. And I don't think Stan was beat by Kawada. He was beat by Misawa, yes. And tag team situation, Kobashi pinned Stan Hansen in tag team situation, but not single match. and Kawada never beat Stan. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So he kept that, very convincing position.
And we don't have any strange or sad memories of his career. Like some wrestlers, they have different stages of their career, and it's just they're not the same. But Stan Hansen was Stan Hansen.
Oh God, yes, he was.
And Jumbo
And
was
he
Jumbo.
worked pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's when people really loved, having Jumbo. It's like Jumbo, Jumbo, Jumbo. It's like a chanting, like it's good to have you. And it's like almost like treat him like a guest superstar for the Budokan show.
Hmm.
He only came back once, maybe a one match per tour or something, only tag team situation, and never spent much time in front of the crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So Jumbo is unique in that, very much so.
Yeah, he came and his print is unique. He's similar to some other wrestlers that came after him and came around that time, but Jumbo was Jumbo. Like you said, I think he's another one of those wrestlers who was first. It seems like he was an NWA style American wrestler before,
Right.
and he was
right.
adapting that style to Japan, just like Stan Hansen was.
Yeah,
And Bruiser
after
Brody.
having program against people like Choshu and Tenryu, he could work Japanese style as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And he had that credibility automatically from being brought in so early after the Olympics, and he was essentially the Japanese Funk brother for a while.
yeah.
He was
yeah,
the little
yeah.
it was the little brother. He was always with them, and you could even in his wrestling he had a similar wrestling style too.
Yeah, very similar to Terry Funk.
Mm.
Yeah, and Dory Funk. Yeah,
But he was actually he was a little bit taller than them.
taller and heavier. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it made him a
yeah.
little different too.
I mean, exceptionally big for Japanese person.
He never moved in a strange or strained way though. He was slower, but he was athletic.
Athletic, yeah, very athletic. Yeah, and he knew when to do and when not to do moves. When he was young, he was throwing drop kicks, 2 or 3 drop kicks during the match. But later on, after he became a little older, he only did drop kick once a year, like big pop.
Mm.
Oh my God, he can still do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jumping knee attack, fine. It's relatively easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the big guy like him, remember Stan Hansen did the drop kick every now and then.
Sometimes,
Bruiser
yeah.
Brody, Bruiser Brody had the mean drop kick, but didn't do it too often. People like a little bit later on, Vader had mean drop kicks,
Mm.
right? And in Japan, drop kick is a really favorite move.
Fundamental. You have to have a good drop kick. It's really you're judged on that by a lot of fans.
Like you're a professional wrestler. Yeah.
You
Good
hear
athlete.
people at Korakuen Hall, the hardcore fans will complain. They say, "Oh, you didn't do it the right way. Do it the other way."
I guess the fans in Tokyo are so educated and have so much information and well-read people.
And they're very demanding, in a good way.
Very demanding. Yeah, very demanding. That's right. Oh, and in a little bit off the subject, but in mid '80s into late '80s, that Keiji Muto was saying he hated working in Korakuen.
Really?
Yeah, because he hated the people's reaction at Korakuen. If you miss move something and people laugh, you can hear it from the ring.
Yeah. It's not a big place like we were talking about. You hear it, and I remember going to a lot of big Japan shows, and there were always 4 or 5 of the same older fellows who would be in the rafters, the cheaper tickets area in the corner.
Oh, they're like critics almost.
Yeah, like every show, but they support everybody. They just switch between.
Love it.
Sometimes they support one. They tend. In my memory, these guys that I'm remembering really liked the older generation and they didn't like a wrestler like Hashimoto Daiichi, who was coming up, new guy. They wanted an older wrestler like Takaiwa.
He hasn't proven anything.
Show him, teach him.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it harder.
But all these people still had this different level of suspending your disbelief thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like prove to me kind of thing.
Yes.
How good you are. Yeah.
And I think that.
But some wrestlers didn't like it.
Yeah, it's
some
a different style.
Some guys didn't care. but Jumbo and Tenryu was always like, okay, I'll show you. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Above that critics.
Yeah, because they were real athletes. They didn't have to hide behind anything or any gimmicks or routines.
Become kiss-ass type wrestler.
Sure,
you know what I
sure,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's like being convincing wrestler is very important in Japan. Probably anywhere in the world. Yeah.
Different standards, but especially in Japan at this time, it was still viewed as a sport.
Yeah, not your today's WWE universe.
No entertainment, no angles, or anything more than talking.
We have to point out that today's New Japan fans, today's New Japan world, we should call it. Today's New Japan world is so much like WWE universe, though.
It's very much kind of insulated, and a lot of new and casual fans that are coming to the product.
And also, they just think it's work, and it's nothing more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think
I still think it's a lot more than or above just work. I still believe in wrestlers wrestling, and the real ability and the real emotions. You can't fake those things.
No, and people like Jumbo is one of those wrestlers who he never came off as phony or insincere or like a character. It was him. It's just him.
And people like Misawa, Kawada, Kobashi carried that part on, right? Yeah.
It doesn't insult your
all these guys are much younger than Jumbo, but now Misawa's gone. Kawada, Kobashi both retired. My God, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, those eras are gone too.
They're gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. But now that we have YouTube, you have old videos that all these things that I'm hoping that today's fan will go back and kind of study Jumbo's era's wrestling from Japanese tapes. This kind of wrestling exists. It's very convincing that will change your perception of what wrestling is or what wrestling should be. You know what I'm saying? It's not just pure entertainment. It's something you can believe in. And I do.
And watching those YouTube videos, I say not just watch the wrestler, don't just watch Jumbo, but watch the crowd and watch how they reacted. I think it's so crazy that people like to say.
What's so funny, the old videos you see on YouTube, Korakuen Hall looks much bigger.
Yeah, it was shot
in that
like
video.
That.
Yeah. I think they used to put more people in there. Then in the late 80s into 90s, that the fire marshal, really cleaned up. You can't put that many people in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How much? Like 2,000?
Actually 1,700.
Okay.
That's it.
So it's really not that big.
They used to but they used to pack 25 to 3,000 people in there.
That's crazy though. Because when it's sold out, it's packed.
And then how are you gonna escape when you really have fire or something?
It's on the 5th floor.
Yeah, of the building.
That's scary. And it's a really small elevator. It's just, a normal elevator. It's a regular kind of building. It's next to a TGI Fridays. It's like a kind of...
Yeah. Actually, the TGI Fridays is the first floor, of the building. And second floor is a Chinese restaurant, And and then third, fourth, fifth is treated as, Korakuen Hall. But it's just a building. Yeah. Nippon TV actually owns it,
Is that true?
Yeah. And also the company called Tokyo Dome owns it.
Like a Tokyo Dome City property.
Yeah, it's a whole complex. It's owned by that group.
Yeah, I guess for people that don't know, the Tokyo Dome is not just the arena, but it's kind of like a area where there's a lot of games and
the Korakuen theme park.
Theme park and baseball.
The Prism Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a recreation.
Restaurant and Tokyo Dome Hotel. Yeah, the whole complex.
Sizzler.
The whole yeah, Sizzler, that too. I go there all the time. I mean, like when you after it's a useless trivia, but after Korakuen Hall show, if you go to Sizzlers, you run into wrestlers and their family.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's a culture, right?
That is, yeah, because it's Tokyo. It's a wrestling mecca in a lot of ways.
I guess so.
Well, it's so condensed and there's so much wrestling. Like you told me once that you said there's over 100 independent promotions just in Tokyo.
Yeah, just in Tokyo. The ones who have website and their own name and a phone. Yeah, some of them are like a office, somebody's house or something, somebody's apartment, but still wrestling group.
Mhm.
Whomever ran wrestling one time or another, running it. So it's like a over 100 group now. Oh my gosh!
Wow.
But that only made bigger company bigger and smaller company smaller.
Right. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
much like your economy, richer people became richer and poor people became poor or something. Not that good, but you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even you are, you started as a like Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega as a perfect example. They started with DDT, right?
Hmm.
And they were discovered by New Japan and got signed away with real lucrative contract and became New Japan superstar.
Mm.
So that method didn't happen in Jumbo and Tenryu Fujinami Choshu era.
No, it wasn't.
You had two big company, and you may go back and forth a little bit, but only top stars.
Yeah, it was just a different. Of course, it was a different time, but the way the information traveled was way slower, much slower.
Oh, it was. Yeah, we have to add that this was before internet era, right?
Mm. So
Or any live streaming on your computer screen.
and a match in January and a match in July felt like forever between them. Summer Action
Yeah.
Series and the tag things at the end of the year, it felt
Yeah.
much farther away.
Oh yeah, it was slower, I guess. Yeah.
And now it's
and
faster.
and Inoki's New Japan and Baba's All Japan, they both had network channel contract.
Yes, yes.
Nippon TV Channel 4 or Channel 5 TV Asahi. Those are like a major league of wrestling. Then there was UWF, who were going to change wrestling into legitimate contest. And the whole concept after UWF, the Fujiwara Gumi, the Akira Maeda's rings, the Funaki and Minoru Suzuki's pancreas, they all eventually became MMA, how you know as MMA today.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting, right? That's another subject for another day.
Yes.
But traditional wrestling, Giant Baba's All Japan, Antonio Inoki's New Japan still remain as a major league of professional wrestling.
Mm.
Funny thing is, though, New Japan Pro Wrestling exists today, but it has nothing to do with Antonio Inoki. And All Japan Pro Wrestling still exists with the same logo. It's not Giant Baba's company.
Yeah.
Or Mrs. Baba's company.
It's definitely the new generation of both companies, but time goes on.
In this whole industry, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, Jumbo is important figure of a time that won't come back. It's just he was on top.
Yeah, and hindsight is like it was really shocking that Giant Baba died, January of 1999. It was really shocking, right? Because he was working in the ring up until December of the following, the previous year, December of 1990, and then he got sick, and then he pretty much died shortly. Then 1 year later, year 2000, Jumbo passed away
Suddenly,
at the age of 49. So not suddenly, but yeah, he was so
relatively.
private about his condition,
And Baba was too as well. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Didn't tell.
Because he was fine. He wasn't fine then, but he must have had a lot of pain, huh? But he was working in that ring until 1 month before his death. Yeah.
Very interesting times, but that pretty much does it with Jumbo Tsuruta. That was his career because
this is something about All Japan. See, Giant Baba is gone, Jumbo Tsuruta's gone, Misawa's gone, or people like main referee Joe Higuchi or Okuma, the Koma, the Russia Kimura, all these key players are all dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inoki
is still well. I mean, still in hospital, but he's still around.
Fuchi,
New Japan
he's
people,
still around.
Fuchi, yeah, well, of course, he's like the last journeyman wrestler in this industry.
He's like a Bilbo Baggins from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I mean, he looks the same when you're 66.
And wrestles the same.
I think so. Yeah.
But Jumbo, he's a really important figure in understanding what All Japan is all about.
Yeah. So you have, bigger picture kind of understanding if you know more about Jumbo.
Yeah, especially the 80s and introducing the 90s generation army.
Or how to pass torch in that ring.
How to pass his torch in a natural, organic, and effective way. Really effective.
Yeah, and people believed in Misawa from that day on. Yes.
And they didn't even believe it if Jumbo beat him 2 months after. It was so strong.
People don't remember it.
They don't even remember because that's how effective the initial match was.
Yes. So Jumbo put him over clean, which was good. You got to do it every now and then.
I heard people were crying in the crowd.
Yeah. Oh, Misawa himself was crying in that ring.
That's amazing.
And Kawada and Kobashi, carrying Misawa on their shoulders, they were crying.
Wow. Not very emotional guys. I don't think I ever really see emotion.
No, they weren't. So it's like that's how believable the whole moment, the whole thing was.
And very meaningful too.
Yeah. So that kind of thing can take place in wrestling.
Yeah.
You're so involved. Yeah.
And invested in it. 100%.
I think so.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I'm happy I experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, I envy you for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So that was I guess that we covered pretty much all the ground.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if there's one match to watch, if there's not a person out there who is not familiar, I would watch the match that we were just talking about with Misawa and Jumbo Tsuruta from 1990, the first one.
Yeah, at the Budokan.
Yeah.
And also 3 previous single match, Jumbo against Tenryu, those important 3 single matches, that is must.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But so that's going to wrap it for now. Let's wrap up. If fans want to reach you on Twitter or Facebook, how can they reach you, Fumi?
Yeah. On Twitter, it's Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Fumihiko Dayo, or just Fumisaito on Facebook.
And don't forget to send a message if you had a Facebook.
Yeah, because I want to know who you are.
Yeah, no strangers, no bots. Just introduce yourself like you would in person.
And I'll respond. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm at Justin M Nipper KNIPPER on Twitter. You can leave comments there or on the Patreon in our comments.
Yeah, we should take a lot more questions, huh?
Yeah, and we're covering a lot of topics from some fans who sent some requests in, and I think we've hit we've hit the Lucha Libre in Japan and Jumbo and Tenryu. So next time we'll come at you with a new surprise. But I guess for now,
until then, so long from Tokyo. Thank you.
You're very on top of it.